Okay, it's the end of the session. I'm here with my buddy Teddy, and I've got a bully stick to keep him occupied and a blue blanket because his paws are a little bit muddy, and I got another session today. This is his roadmap to success, and he's a great little dog. He's got some energy. We've got 2 videos above, which I normally don't do, but the first video is all about how to teach a dog to settle itself down and to condition them to not jump up. For dogs, when they jump up on someone when they come through the door, that's a way of claiming them. So as I talked about in the video there, what we do is we kind of create a scenario where Teddy can discover the behavior that we want that gets rewarded, and the other behavior just causes the human to move away. Watch that video, and I'll explain how to do it in full. But when you're doing that, make sure that anytime you have a guest come over, have them on the leash and practice that technique. When you guys are coming home for each other, make sure that you call or text each other. I have some guys that put a big note on their front door: do not ring the doorbell, call us first. And that way everybody comes to your house, gets you a chance to practice. After a while, he'll start sitting automatically and be calmer faster and faster. Basically, I think that he was getting a lot of attention, a lot of what we call negative attention for doing the wrong things. Most people are unaware of the fact that any attention to a dog is pretty much validating. And so if a dog is stealing our remote control, or chewing on our slippers, or marking, or whatever it is, that can actually entice them to want to continue doing that behavior. Let's get you up here, buddy. If he does the wrong things, he gets attention, he's going to continue doing the wrong things. A lot of us train our dogs to misbehave. So what we do instead is we want to condition him to doing the right things. And some of the ways we do that is petting with a purpose and passive training. So for petting with a purpose, if he comes up to me and he jumps up on me, or he nudges me, or he barks for attention, if I pet him, I'm telling him, yes, I'm petting you for doing that, number one. That's going to cause that behavior to continue. I'm also telling him that you have dominion over me. When you tell me what to do, I jump. So instead, when he nudges me or does any of those things, I give him a counter order, tell him to sit. He's already sitting, ask him to sit over here or whatever it is. So he has to do something to change his state to get that attention. Once he does, we're going to pat him under his chin to facilitate that nose up, and we're going to say sit or crash or whatever the word is, and only the word. Not good sit, not Teddy sit, just sit. And also not sit, sit. Say it consistently. After a while, he's going to come start sitting in front of you to prepay for attention. When he does, make sure we reach over and pet him. Now, you can also scratch his butt and pat him in other places. Just never pat him on top of the head and say just the command word once. Now, we have multiple people in the house. If one person sees him do it and they say crash when he lays down, the other person doesn't need to say it too. If you say it at the same time, that's okay, but only one person say it, only say it one time. So petting with a purpose is redirecting the dog if it's trying to get our attention. Now, we can also use petting with a purpose if I want to pet Teddy and he's not asking for attention, but I still want to pet him. I still tell him to sit or lay down or do something to earn that affection. And that will help increase his respect for the human. It'll help him practice a desired behavior, and it'll also entice him to offer that behavior in the future as a way of getting attention. So it's really a trifecta of bonuses. Now the other side of and use the word paycheck. So if I come in the room and I see someone's petting Teddy and he's standing up, I assume they might have forgotten. I say paycheck. That person has to stop petting. They tell Teddy to sit or do something else, pat him on his chin and say, actually, Mom asked him to sit before, when he came out of the bathroom and you flushed the toilet, he stood up and I continued petting him, and David said it's okay, which it is. But it's not a gotcha. It just means I think you may have forgotten. It's a gentle reminder to support each other, not to gotcha. Now, the other side of it is what we call passive training. And passive training is really a form of operant conditioning. It's waiting for the dog to voluntarily offer you a behavior that you like, and then rewarding it within that 3-second window while you mark it by saying the command word. So every time Teddy comes to you, pet him and say come, or here, whatever the word is. Every time that he sits, pet him and say sit. Every time he lays down, pet him and say crash. Every time he goes to the dog bed, call it Scottsdale, or whatever the names of the other dog beds. Remember, go to Groupon. The ones I like to order on Groupon are the Sealy Posturepedic or the Memory Foam. And make sure you get a light cream, a light gray, or a white, and get one that's just a flat rectangular cushion. Don't get one with the backs and the sides, or that is more fluffy or has feathers and no pattern on it. We want him to be able to see those treats when we leave them on there. Okay, so passive training, if you get in the habit of doing that, every time he comes to you or does something you want, that's another reinforcement of doing those positive behaviors. If you get in a habit of petting with a purpose and passive training, it'll take you guys about a month, so remind each other. Say testify if somebody's missing an opportunity to reward the dog for a desired behavior, paycheck if they're doing the wrong thing. And after a while, you guys will start doing it, you won't even think about it. And then every time you pet your dog, it's like a micro training session. Now, we also went over the 4 escalating consequences to disagree with unwanted actions and behaviors. Remember to do those the hiss before he does the wrong thing. You're slobbering all over me, so I'm gonna let you just have it. But no, you got to stay here for it. Good try, buddy. So the first one is a hiss. Use one of your 10 hisses and do it before he does the wrong thing, and only hiss once per incident. Second thing we do, and if he's really intense with something, don't hiss at him. Don't hiss at a time that's not going to work. And so if he's over there bouncing underneath the trampoline like we have in the other video above, don't hiss. That's way too late. He's not going to listen to you. So the first one is we hiss one time per incident. Second thing was we stand up abruptly, turn to face him, keep him in front of us, pivot at our hips until he stops moving. Stands, sits, or lies down. When he does that, take 2 steps backwards and only 2 steps backwards. Now you're staying there. And then pause for 1 second. Then go back to doing what you're doing. The pause is important to let him know, hey, that's the end of the sentence. Now, if what you were doing was sitting down, when you sit, you should expect him to come back again, so don't sit too deeply on the couch. The third consequence is to march deliberately at the dog. Have some momentum with you. Keep marching at him. If he doesn't get out of your way, run into him. The whole idea is to get him to turn sideways or greater away from you. As soon as he does, freeze in place, stop moving. Then you go to the second consequence, pivoting until he's stationary, then take those 2 steps backwards, pause for 1 second, and go back to doing what you're doing. The only time this doesn't apply is if like somebody's eating and Teddy's turned sideways in a designated area he's not supposed to be in. So one of the rules we'll talk about in a minute is he's not supposed to be on the carpet in the living room when anyone has food on the couch. So if somebody gets up and marches at him and he's still on the carpet but he turns sideways, we would continue marching at him and bump into him, keep bumping into him until he gets across the line. And we stop marching at the line. That's important that we stop right away. That's how we communicate that this is the line I want you to respect. If you go side to side twice, trying to block him, but then start going diagonally forward if he continues to challenge you. So the third consequence is to march deliberately at the dog until it turns sideways or greater away from you. Then we go to the second consequence, we're pivoting until he's stationary, take those 2 steps backwards, pause, then and then go back to doing what you're doing. The fourth consequence is what I call a leash timeout. We put him on a leash because he's a short-snouted dog. We're going to use a harness. We're going to basically attach the leash to this and step on it about this far away. So in his case, maybe about that far away. Nope, you're definitely not going. Come here, buddy. You're going to stay up here. We're going to wait for him to sit, and we're not going to tell him to sit. He's going to throw a temper tantrum and flop around. Don't say a word. It's a good way to burn energy. When he gets done, he's going to sit. When he sits, take your foot that's on the leash, because he's going to have tension on the leash. Slide your foot and the leash towards him to take the tension off the leash. A minute later, sometimes several minutes later, he will lay down. When he lays down, very subtly take your foot off the leash, but don't detach the leash. When he gets done, or when he gets up and walks away, he's going to be nice and calm. Now, if he goes back to doing what he's doing, as he runs past you, you can step on the leash and reapply the consequence. If he doesn't, then you can go ahead and detach the leash. What we're saying is when you're misbehaving, I'm going to warn you multiple times, and eventually you're going to lose all freedom. So remember, we hiss before he does the wrong thing. Once he does the wrong thing, we stand up and turn to face him. If he does it a second time, then we march deliberately at him. If the fourth time, we put him on the leash. At first, it'll be hiss, stand, march, leash. Then after a while, it'll be hiss, stand, march. Then hiss, stand. Then eventually just the hiss. But always start with your hiss. If you always start with a stand-up, that's fine, but then you always have to go there. It's nice to be able to just hiss at the dog before it does the wrong thing without having to go through. But make sure you follow through. When it comes to dogs, you have to follow through. Every time you give in early and let him get his way, you're going to make him twice as defiant the next time you encounter that activity. I know it sucks, but sometimes you just have to stop and bite the bullet and get that problem solved once and for all. Now, I also went over escalating consequences. What else did I go over? Exercising the dog creatively. So we used a laser. He liked chasing laser. That was a great one. We also went over using the stairs and the dog going up down the stairs. Fetch is a good one. Walks are okay, but they're not the most efficient way of exercising. So what I would suggest you do is start an exercise journal. Write down the time and how long the walk was, the time and the number of fetches, the time and the number of up downs, the time and the day is what I mean by the time, and how many revolutions around the room with the laser. Remember, the laser, you only have so much usage out of it, so keep that for more special occasions. For this one, if he likes to play fetch, there's something called a Whistler ball. I think it's Whistler or Whistler. It's basically a glow-in-the-dark ball that's hollow with 2 holes inside. When you throw it, it makes a whistling sound. It glows in the dark. So maybe at night, you have one of the kids charged up and get a chucker. Then you just play fetch with him at night. And remember, when you do this, the first time for all the exercise, do it with an empty stomach, and don't exercise him a lot with a full stomach. And then basically that way and with the exercise journal, play around with those elements, and each day give a letter grade. After a while, you'll realize, you know what, Teddy needs exercise every 2 hours and 45 minutes or he gets into trouble. And if he does get into trouble, I want you to interpret that as his way of saying, probably I need more exercise. And then that would be a great thing for one of the kids to come out and take him play fetch or whatever it is. Now, for the exercise journal, keep that for about a month and write down other things like when you feed him or if he gets the zoomies or other things that are related to it so you can kind of start discerning. And again, each day play around with the elements until you find out the right combination of exercise that gets him a success. Now, we talked about how we can use chocolate to motivate the kids. I would, again, maybe make the laser part of that because I really like doing the laser. Maybe that's something they get a certain number of threshold of M&Ms for rewards for desired behaviors. Remember to keep the dog beds dog only. So the kids are not allowed to go on the dog bed or entice him to come off the dog bed if he's there, so he has a safe place he can go if he gets overwhelmed. Let me see. He doesn't like the harness, and I showed the guardians how to do a conditional emotional response, or also referred to as a CER. So when you do that, make sure you have a handful of treats and then the leash and harness behind your back. And I'm going to have both of them behind my back. Show him the leash. As soon as he looks at it, pull it away, and then drop a treat on the floor. Then pull that hand behind your back. Then wait a second, and when he gets done chewing it, flash it again. Do that about anywhere from about 5 to 10 treats, maybe 1 or 2 times. Then by the second time you're doing it, you probably can hold it and make sure when you flash it, it's about this far away from his head or closer. He'll lean towards it a little bit. So now you're going to add the criteria. Now you have to lean towards it, and I throw the treat, and it goes away. And keep on doing that until he leans closer and closer, and eventually he'll touch it with his nose and then drop it on the ground. And do this with about 10 or 15 treats, and then put it away. And don't do it when you're taking it for a walk. Just do it periodically. So try to do that about 2 to 4 times a day, and maybe have different people in the house doing that. And that way he's just used to everybody doing it. And eventually once you start touching it, then you can hold it up and put your hand through it with the treat, give him that, and then kind of, and let him nibble on it. And then next time put your treat out. So if this is the opening, at first I'm going this far, then I'm going this far, then this far, then this far, and now he's starting to put his head through the harness to get that treat. And eventually, you just hold the harness up and he'll come and shove his whole head through there. So we take away that negative, but if he runs away from it, we chase him and put this on anyways, that kind of validates his fears. And there's nothing wrong to be fearful about, and this is a very easy way to help him have a good positive association with this. Now, one of the kids likes to play in roughhouse with him a little bit, which is great, but I would use that as a practice scenario. So basically, okay, it's time for you. Let's do wrestling, WWE. Call it, make it a fun game. Kid goes out there and starts playing with them, and after a certain period of time, or the energy level gets past level 5 energy, time out, and the kid just freezes. And he's going to still jump for a second, and then eventually he'll sit down, and then wait, make sure he's completely calm, and then you can resume or end the activity. Whenever possible, though, whenever you're doing anything, try to make the last thing that he does a good one. And also try to have something fun afterwards, so he really enjoys the ending of the other activity, and then it was also related to something fun. And so practice that, and don't just practice it out here, practice it in the house in different places so the dog gets used to stopping playing. And that way you can start and stop, and I come up with a fun word like time out. And so that after a while, when they're roughhousing, you say time out, and the kids can say time out when they freeze, and he knows now we put that in context, he understands what that means. Now, we also talked about enforcing rules consistently, and that's going to be really important. And the dad was a little bit concerned because I throw a lot of people at 4 hours. It's not as hard to do if you really help each other out. One at a time, dad's going to miss it, and mom will see it, and vice versa, and the kids as well. So try to do as many things as possible. If you have any questions, make sure you text me. If I don't hear from you, I assume everything's going great. I am here to help you out, but I can only do that if you let me know you need the help. The last thing I'll talk about are the rules. So one of the rules he'd be breaking right now, not being allowed in the furniture, which mom likes anyways. Get X mats. X mats are, I think, either $11 or $18 a piece. Get one for each cushion, and I'd probably put one on the ottoman as well. Put the tinfoil in the other room the way we talked about. The X mats, just put them on the cushion, and if somebody wants to come and sit, fold it up, put it under the couch. When they get up, they take it out and put it back there. If one of the kids maybe forgets, do you drop it?
No, he's just grabbing a lot of it in his mouth.
Oh. Yeah. This is the time mom doesn't want you to have it anymore.
I just don't want you to choke.
We don't want you to choke on this, buddy, so we're going to have to wait. It's going to probably make you go get that, but we'll talk about that off camera. So basically the X mats, you can get them on Amazon. They're kind of expensive. They're not expensive, but it'll be about $50, $60. Just do it so you get it done. And then you leave those out for, it'll be a month or a couple months before he stops doing it. And then eventually just move one of them off the couch and see how he does with a little, and kind of rearrange the other one so the spacing is kind of consistent. And then eventually you can take a second one off and a third one off. Or you might fold them in half so it's not the spike part. And as long as he shows that he stays off there, after a while you're creating a behavior pattern. After a while he just won't even think about it. Especially if we're leaving treats on the dog bed, which we are calling Scottsdale. So you need a lot of treats for the right things, buddy. Other rules would be not being allowed in the kitchen when the parents when anybody's cooking the food. We're going to leave the baby gate that we have open. so that way the dog is the one doing the work by staying out. It helps him practice self-control, and also helps mom practice enforcing those boundaries. Not being allowed within the around the table when we're eating food, or the kids should have their snack on the couch, so mom can practice enforcing that boundary there. When anybody has food on there, he's not allowed to be on the carpet. When everybody, maybe put the painter's tape down where I showed you around your dining room table, so when we're eating food, not allowed to do that. To come in that area. You can go anywhere else you want as long as you're not breaking other rules. You're just not allowed to come into the designated area when we have food. Now, for the food, for the kitchen, as well as for the dinner table, set him up for success. Help him practice by microwaving a piece of roast beef or Canadian bacon or regular bacon, and then putting it down, and mom pretends like she's cooking. She's knocking pots and pans around, turning the stove on, turning the oven on, taking stuff out of the fridge, all the things you normally do, but you're watching him out of the corner of your eye, and the second he starts to cross that threshold, you hiss or march at him. And eventually you get to the point where he'll just sit or lie down, then you just start your actual cooking. So you do the same thing with the dinner table. Just put a microwave piece of roast beef, cut it up, put it in everybody's plate, they cut it into little pieces. As soon as he lays down, then we go ahead and serve the actual meal. And after practicing that for a week or so, he'll just start keeping that boundary. It'll be easier to get him out because now he knows what we want him to do. Is there anything else I'm forgetting?
Oh, just putting the baby gate at the top of the stairs.
Oh, okay, and then the baby gate they had at the bottom of the stairs, but because we want him going up and down the stairs, that kind of creates a little bit of a conundrum. Also, the family hangs out upstairs at times, and that kind of separates him. For dogs to be excluded from the group is actually a form of punishment. So he could take that as being dressed down or ostracized, especially if he hears the boys upstairs having a good time. It's like, man, what did I do? So what I recommended is just attaching the baby gate to the railway at the top of the stairs, and then to the other part of the railway. Put a dog bed up there so he can be on that landing. He has like a little 4 foot section that he can hang out on, and that way he can be and it's kind of a playroom for the kids right up there anyways. That way he can see what they're doing, and also have the benefit of helping him practice being around them without being able to engage with them. Now if he gets really hyper when the kids are in there playing, it might be a good idea for him to go down or come outside or whatever, so he doesn't see it as well. We'd like to use the practice, but sometimes life happens, we just don't have time to deal with the dog. We're just going to put him outside so he isn't tempted. Anything else?
I think that was it.
Make sure you're eating before you feed him. And I have videos for all this stuff. So if you forget the escalating consequence, how to feed him, how to make him sit at the door, which is another one of the rules. And the kids should probably also take turns feeding him. But basically, if you have questions on any of these things, make sure you let me know. Well, this handsome devil is Teddy, and this is Teddy's roadmap to success. Remember, everything that you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it.